You wake up, right? And it is 3 in the morning.
Oh, the absolute worst time to wake up.
Literally the worst. And the very first thing you register, before you even fully realize you're actually awake in your own bed, is this intense physical sensation.
Like a shock to the system.
Exactly.
Mm.
Your entire body is just covered in goosebumps.
Yeah.
You were lying there in the dark, and the lingering terror of what you just saw in your dream is so vivid, so intensely real, that your heart is just hammering against your ribs.
Yeah, it is a profound, really visceral shock. It's this physical state of absolute dread that just follows you out of the sleep state and directly into the waking world.
Right.
You aren't just remembering a bad dream at that point, you know? Your body is actively living the aftermath of an intense physiological alarm.
And, I mean, I have had nightmares before. We all have.
Sure, yeah.
You wake up, you realize it's just a dream, you shake it off, and you go back to sleep. But the author of the deeply personal blog post we're looking at today, they experienced something completely different.
Totally different scale.
Yeah. The images that caused this physical reaction were haunting on a level that you just cannot shake off. So in this dream, the author is looking at his wife. She is sitting in this beautifully lit room, and she is smiling.
Okay.
A perfect, flawless smile. But when he asks her a question, she just keeps smiling, the identical frozen smile, and says, "I haven't spoken a single word. I hate communicating."
Oh, wow. That's deeply chilling.
It really is. And it gets worse, because next to her is a baby, and the baby also has this massive permanent smile.
Uh-huh.
But it hasn't grown. It hasn't developed a single tooth. It makes absolutely no sound. It is just frozen in time, staring with this empty, smiling face.
That is a profoundly unsettling image. I mean, the contrast between the outward expression of joy, that frozen smile, and the absolute chilling refusal to connect or grow.
Right. It feels so wrong.
It does. And what makes this experience so complex is that it wasn't just a single isolated nightmare. The author documented a completely multi-layered dream.
Like a dream within a dream.
Exactly. It was a descent through different environments, different scenarios, all of them compounding into this singular terror at the end.
And the author documented every bizarre, agonizing detail of this journey. So that is our mission for this deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We're going to unpack this specific layered nightmare. We're going to follow the author's journey to understand the urgent emergency stop signals our inner selves send us when we are entirely exhausted by the social roles we force ourselves to play.
It is such a vital journey to trace. Because dreams of this magnitude, these multi-layered, terrifying experiences, they function as a very specific language.
Right, they're trying to tell us something.
Exactly. The body and the deep subconscious are attempting to communicate a severe crisis that the waking self is just desperately ignoring.
We just push it away during the day.
We do. But when the inner self issues a warning, it speaks in the language of symbols and terror. And if you continue to ignore those warnings, if you refuse to learn that language, it ultimately leads to the complete depletion of your energy. I mean, the exhaustion of your very life force.
Yeah, running totally empty. So let's follow the sequence of events exactly as they happen, because to understand how a person ends up face-to-face with a terrifyingly silent, smiling family, we really have to look at the starting line.
We have to see where it all began.
Right. And the dream doesn't start in a haunted house or anything scary.
No, rarely does.
It starts in a remarkably mundane setting. The first layer takes place during a gourmet TV shoot in downtown Osaka.
Which is so specific.
Very specific. The dreamer is following an authoritative MC around, and they are in complete silence.
Right. And if you think about it, that is a highly structured social environment. It's a setting defined entirely by roles, expectations, and public performance.
You have to act a certain way on a TV shoot.
Exactly. The dreamer is present, but they are completely stripped of their own voice.
They aren't speaking a single word. And then the scenario turns deeply uncomfortable. The dreamer is forced to eat dropped fish.
Oh.
Yeah. They are eating food that was prepared on visibly unsanitary, dirty cutting boards. And I had just trying to wrap my head around this specific imagery, like, why food? Why not just dream of being yelled at by a boss or something?
Well, if you look at this from a psychoanalytic perspective, the act of eating is deeply symbolic of how we interact with the world.
Oh, interesting, like taking things in.
Precisely. Taking things into the mouth is the most intimate act of acceptance. You are taking the outside world and literally putting it inside yourself.
Wow, okay. Never thought about it like that.
Yeah, so it represents swallowing external values, internalizing the demands and expectations of other people.
So the food in the dream is contaminated, it's dropped on the floor, it's prepared on dirty surfaces, it's basically filthy.
And yet they eat it anyway. The dirty food represents toxic, unacceptable, or just deeply uncomfortable situations that the author is forcing themselves to swallow in their waking life.
Just to fit in.
Right, to fit in or to maintain their social standing. It is the vivid bodily representation of the exhaustion of compromise.
So when you are constantly accepting conditions or relationships that feel fundamentally wrong to you, but you swallow your objections just to keep the peace,
Your deep inner self registers that as ingesting poison.
that makes so much sense.
You are consuming filth because the authoritative MC, which could be the pressure of society or work or social norms, dictates that you absolutely must.
It feels exactly like being at a toxic corporate retreat where you have to pretend the stale, terrible coffee is some sort of luxury blend just to keep the peace.
That is a perfect analogy. You play along even when it makes you sick.
It's like downloading a corrupted file into your system because the IT department told you it was a mandatory update.
Yeah.
You know it's going to wreck your hard drive, but you click accept anyway because you just don't want to cause a scene. Think about your own day-to-day. Just you, listening to this.
Yeah.
How many times did you swallow the dirty food? How many times did you sit in a meeting, nodding and smiling at an idea that you fundamentally disagreed with just to appease the room?
We all do it. We endure the unsanitary conditions of the situation because that is what the role requires.
Yeah. And notice the absolute silence of the dreamer in this scenario. They are enduring this whole contamination thing without uttering a single word of protest.
Right. It perfectly illustrates a state where self-expression is just entirely sealed off. The dreamer is desperately trying to keep up with the group, completely silencing their own disgust.
But then, right in the middle of this suppressed, silent endurance, the dream introduces this super jarring contrast.
What's fascinating here is what happens out on the street.
Yes. Out on the street, there is this muscular comedian. He is wearing a tight, revealing leotard, and he is just dancing wildly.
Absolute, uninhibited, frantic movement.
Exactly. And the dreamer is observing this comedian through a camera lens. The dreamer is cheesing the comedian, interacting with him through the camera, but still remaining completely, utterly silent themselves.
Yeah.
Wait, but isn't a comedian supposed to be funny? Why is the dreamer just silently filming him? What does this muscular guy in a leotard even have to do with anything?
It is the stark polarization of energy within the dreamer. You have the dreamer on one side who is physically repressed, silent, swallowing toxic elements just to comply.
Right.
And right in front of them is this comedian who is the physical embodiment of loud, wild, completely unconstrained self-expression. The comedian is actually a projection of the dreamer's own suppressed desires.
Okay, so the comedian is the part of the dreamer that just wants to scream and dance.
Yeah.
Like the part that wants to throw the dirty fish on the floor and cause a massive scene.
Yes, absolutely. It is the suppressed voice, the suppressed need to be seen, and to just take up space in the world. The dreamer desperately wants to express themselves, to be wild, to be loud, but they feel completely trapped in the role of the silent consumer.
The quiet observer behind the lens.
Exactly. And the camera is a really crucial detail here. A camera creates a literal barrier between you and the world.
Because you're just watching.
Right. It allows you to look at something without truly participating in it.
Yeah.
They can only interact with that wild energy by safely teasing it from a distance. It illustrates the agonizing conflict between the intense desire to show one's true self and the crushing weight of a social role that demands silent conformity.
That dynamic is so relatable. Just watching someone else loudly express themselves while you remain a silent consumer, that is a clear sign of suppressed self-display.
It really is.
It is the huge gap between saying, I want to put myself out there, and I absolutely cannot, and maintaining that gap, keeping that heavy lid on your own expression while forcing yourself to swallow all the dirty realities of the social world. That requires a massive amount of internal energy.
It is an entirely unsustainable state. You cannot maintain this surface-level compliance indefinitely without the system completely buckling.
Something has to give.
Right. And the dream narrative reflects this unsustainability through actual physical movement. The sheer exhaustion of maintaining this social self causes the dream landscape to shift. It moves from the surface streets of Osaka straight down into a darker, deeper place.
The exhaustion literally pulls the dreamer under.
Yes, exactly.
So if the surface is all about maintaining this incredibly tight, draining conformance, you can only hold your breath for so long before gravity just takes over. The dreamer physically moves from the surface streets down into an underground area. And down there, things shift from being socially awkward to profoundly desolate.
In the language of dreams, moving physically downward, like going underground or into a basement or descending stairs, almost always represents a dive away from the conscious, waking mind and directly into the deep subconscious.
So you're leaving reality behind.
You are leaving the realm of logic, social rules, and surface appearances entirely. You are entering the raw, unfiltered territory of your deepest emotional state.
And what they find down there feels so absurd at first glance. There's an underground sea, and gathered near this underground sea are 56 men. They're all in their 50s, and they're all cosplaying as characters from the anime One Piece. Now, I have to admit, my first instinct is to find that funny, or it's completely weird. Why is the dream using something that silly to communicate something devastating?
Well, to understand it, we really have to look at the individual components. The presence of a sea, an underground body of water, is a classic representation of the collective unconscious. It's a vast, deep reservoir of unexamined emotion. It is the deep, dark waters of the self. And standing on the shores of this emotional depth are these 56 middle-aged men clinging to the costumes of fictional, youthful heroes.
Wow. Okay.
It is not meant to be funny at all. It actually represents a desperate refusal to mature.
Oh, I see. A clinging to adolescent fantasies instead of facing the reality of their actual stage in life.
Precisely. It is a defense mechanism. When the reality of adulthood, the relentless responsibilities, the compromises, the dirty food you literally have to swallow every day, when all of that becomes too exhausting, a part of the self desperately wants to regress.
It just wants out.
It wants to go back to a time of clear heroes, simple adventures, and endless potential. These cosplaying men are a manifestation of that internal desire to escape the heavy, draining reality of the dreamer's current existence.
That makes total sense.
They represent a twilight of youth, a moment where the system is begging to escape rather than step up and face the pressure.
I mean, have you ever had a week so draining that you just wanted to hide under a blanket and watch cartoons because paying bills and answering emails felt physically impossible?
Oh, absolutely. We all have those moments.
That is exactly what this is. And the dream makes it very clear just how draining the dreamer's existence is, because the next thing that happens underground is that they are filming at a massive bank.
Right.
And the specific purpose of being at this bank is to borrow money.
This is a literal visual manifestation of the concept of running on empty. In the waking world, the dreamer's spiritual and emotional energy is completely bankrupt.
Just zero balance.
Less than zero.
Yeah.
They have given absolutely everything to the surface world, to the social roles, to the forced compliance we talked about. There is nothing left in the accounts.
Yeah.
So down in the deep subconscious, the system visualizes this crisis as a desperate need to take out a loan. They are surviving only on borrowed external validation, borrowing energy they do not actually have just to keep functioning.
Emotional bankruptcy. That is such a heavy concept.
It really is.
What does emotional debt even look like in a modern life? Is it dreading Sunday night so intensely that it completely ruins your weekend? Is it feeling totally hollowed out after a simple 10-minute conversation with a coworker?
Yes, to all of that.
To be so spiritually in the red that your subconscious sends you to a bank just to find the energy to wake up the next day? That's terrifying.
And you see this depletion pop up again in the very next scene.
Right. The timer has apparently been on a really long, exhausting bike ride. They finally stop to eat, but the meal they are given is a bowl of curry soba.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a bad meal. It is specifically described as being someone else's leftovers. The noodles inside are hard and totally undercooked.
So we return to the symbolism of food and eating here.
Which we know is super important.
Exactly. If the dirty food on the surface represented swallowing toxic social expectations, this leftover, undercooked curry soba in the underground represents severe emotional malnutrition. After a long, arduous journey, which represents the exhausting effort of just getting through their daily life, the reward, the nourishment they finally receive is completely inadequate.
It's basically garbage.
It is hard, it is tough to chew, it is secondhand. They're not receiving the care, the love, or the emotional sustenance they actually need to replenish those bankrupt energy reserves.
And this is where the entire dynamic of the dream shifts.
Yes, it does.
On the surface, the dreamer ate the dirty fish in total silence. But here, underground, they actually try to express that this is bad.
They push back?
Yeah. They complain about the terrible, undercooked food, and the reaction from the people around them is immediate mockery.
Right.
A figure named Ujihara calls them mean-spirited just for complaining, and the entire staff joins in, loudly laughing at the dreamer. The laughter is so loud, so booming, that it actually echoes and wakes up women who were sleeping in a nearby private space.
This exposes a profound, deep-seated fear. The dreamer is experiencing legitimate pain and deprivation, the undercooked food, the complete lack of care.
Right. Their complaint is totally valid.
Entirely valid. But when they try to vocalize that pain, when they finally drop the mask of silence and ask for something better, they are met with collective ridicule.
That's awful.
It is the fear that if you ever admit that you are starving emotionally and genuinely need help, you won't receive compassion. You will be weaponized against. You will just become a laughingstock.
It's the terror of vulnerability right there. You finally build up the courage to say, I am hurting, this isn't enough, and the world just points and laughs at you.
Exactly.
And the detail about the laughter being so loud that it wakes up women in a private space, that is fascinating to me. The boundary between a public humiliation and a private sanctuary completely collapses.
The walls just cave in.
Yeah, the mockery doesn't just stay in the social sphere. It shatters your internal sense of safety. You can't even retreat to a quiet place because the echo of that public ridicule just follows you and disrupts absolutely everything.
The walls of defense have officially fallen. And when that boundary collapses, when the underground becomes a place of mockery and bankruptcy rather than a place of rest, the dream system descends into the absolute core of the terror.
It goes even deeper.
The exhaustion reaches a critical mass, and we move right into the emotional climax of the experience.
So your public defenses are breached, your private sanctuary is invaded by laughter. Where do you even retreat to? You go to the absolute core. Which brings us back to the image we started with. The silent wife, and the ungrowing baby.
This is the deepest layer of the psychological descent. The dreamer finds themselves in a beautifully lit, warm, Japanese-style room. Orange, indirect lighting. On the surface, it looks like the perfect picture of domestic tranquility and safety.
But the atmosphere is completely suffocating. Here's where it gets really interesting. The dreamer's wife, Sayaka, is there. She has huge eyes, and she is wearing a permanent, flawless smile. It never wavers at all. The dreamer asks her, essentially, are we talking enough? Am I communicating with you enough? And she replies, still holding that perfect, unmoving smile. I haven't spoken a single word. I hate communicating.
It is the ultimate manifestation of dissonance.
It really is.
If we analyze this, the figure of the wife, Sayaka, is not literally the dreamer's waking life spouse. She is a symbol.
Okay, what does she symbolize?
She represents the dreamer's inner femininity, that vital part of the self that nurtures, that feels deeply, that forms intimate connections and processes soft, vulnerable emotions.
And that nurturing, feeling part of the self is just completely walled off here.
Totally. The horror comes from the absolute disconnect. The outward presentation is perfect, a flawless, beautiful smile in a warm room, but the internal reality is a cold-blooded refusal to communicate.
Wow.
The inner self is essentially saying, I am presenting the socially required smile, but I have entirely shut down the mechanism of connection. I absolutely refuse to speak to you anymore.
A smile with absolutely nothing behind it. That is just bone-chilling.
It's terrifying.
But think about how often we do this in waking life. We constantly weaponize our own smiles to hide extreme internal distress.
We do it every single day.
We walk into work,
Yep.
we smile. We see friends, we smile. You smile at your partner when you are too exhausted to even explain why you were sad.
Right.
But behind that smile, there is a part of us that is completely deadened. A part that has just given up on ever truly being heard or understood. The dream takes that everyday masking and just turns the volume up to a terrifying extreme.
Exactly. The dreamer is confronted with the terrifying realization that their own internal compass for connection has gone completely numb, and this tragedy is compounded by the figure next to Sayaka, the baby.
Yes, the baby is just as unsettling.
Oh, absolutely.
He has the same massive, permanent smile as the wife. But as the dreamer looks around, they notice other babies in the dream are growing, they're babbling, they're developing normally.
Right, acting like regular babies.
But this baby hasn't grown at all. It hasn't developed a single tooth. It makes zero sound. It is entirely frozen in time. Why no teeth? Why is that specific detail so prominent?
Well, if the wife represents the capacity for emotional connection, the baby represents the inner child, or the seed of new potential within the dreamer. A baby is pure vulnerability, pure growth. Teeth are tools for processing reality. They allow you to bite, to chew, to take in substance. So a baby without teeth is utterly defenseless and entirely dependent.
That makes total sense.
But this baby is trapped in the exact same rigid performance as the wife. It is smiling, but it is not growing. Its frozen state indicates that the purest, most vulnerable part of the dreamer, their core potential for genuine joy and development, has been completely neglected.
It's just been left behind.
It has been starved of the emotional nutrients it needs to thrive, left in a state of suspended animation while the rest of the world just moves forward.
It's absolutely devastating. And the dreamer actually realizes this in the moment. They feel this overwhelming wave of guilt, and they try to apologize. They look at the frozen baby, and they try to form the words, "I'm sorry."
They try to make it right.
Yeah, but the moment they try to initiate genuine repair with that neglected part of themselves, they are violently swallowed by an extreme, crushing wave of sleepiness.
Right.
They're completely pulled away from the confrontation.
That forced sleepiness within the dream is a profound defense mechanism kicking in. A true confrontation with how deeply one has neglected their own soul is overwhelmingly painful. The system simply cannot handle the weight of that realization, so it forces a shutdown.
It's like a computer's thermal throttling. The system realizes that confronting this frozen baby is going to spike the emotional temperature so high that the motherboard will literally fry, so it just initiates a hard emergency shutdown to protect itself.
That's a great way to put it.
But this active evasion only plunges them into a more chaotic physical reality.
Right, because now we are moving from the realm of psychological symbols to the stark reality of physical distress. The structure of this multi-layered dream waking up within a dream, slipping from one bizarre scenario to another, feeling overwhelmingly sleepy while already asleep, all of this is the direct result of a physical system in absolute crisis.
So we are talking about a system shutdown. But what is physically happening to the sleeper's body in that bed?
That's the real question.
The author describes a scene where they encounter a sleep doctor within the dream. And this doctor looks at them and delivers this crushing diagnosis. You have never slept properly in your life.
Right.
How does a body know it's not resting while it's supposedly resting?
Well, when an individual exists in a state of chronic extreme stress, their physical system is constantly flooded with stress hormones. They are in a state of hyperarousal, they're constantly vigilant, always braced for an attack.
Like their alarm is always blaring.
Exactly. When you carry that level of physical tension into sleep, your resting state becomes incredibly fragile. In this state of hyperarousal, normal rest becomes highly fragmented.
It's broken up.
Yes. The body is trying to shut down, but the stress signals keep interrupting. The consciousness partially wakes up due to the stress, but because the body is so exhausted, it immediately slips back into a new layer of dreaming. You just get trapped in this loop of false awakenings and shifting dreamscapes.
It is a literal physical tug of war.
It really is.
The exhaustion demands sleep, but the stress demands vigilance. And the dream visualizes this internal battle brilliantly. The dreamer sees an image of a delicate white ball encased in a fragile purple bubble.
Okay.
And this purple bubble is being violently and relentlessly attacked by other white spheres.
That visual is a remarkably intuitive representation of the body's internal state. Think of a bubble. It represents extreme fragility. Surface tension. One prick and it's completely gone.
It's just ball.
Right. The delicate white ball in the purple bubble is the body's desperate attempt to maintain a stable, restful sleep state. And the attacking spheres are the internal and external stressors, the anxiety, the physical tension, constantly bombarding and eroding that fragile piece.
It's like an immune system visualization, but specifically for stress. The body literally feels like its rest is under full siege.
And that siege escalates into full-blown warfare.
Oh, it really does.
The dream layers shift again, and suddenly the dreamer is witnessing Star Wars airships engaging in massive aerial combat, and enormous 3D anime-style tribes are screaming and attacking from the sky.
It's so chaotic.
It is a scene of overwhelming, chaotic violence and noise. The dreamer is just walking through this incredibly loud, chaotic environment, feeling a desperate, overwhelming urge to just leave, to escape all the noise.
So the body is essentially creating a Hollywood blockbuster-level action sequence just to tell the sleeper that they're too stressed out to rest.
Precisely. The attacking tribes, the screaming, the spaceships, these are not random images. They are the body's way of illustrating a massive adrenaline rush occurring while the person is supposed to be asleep.
That's wild.
The physical system is flooded with the physical chemistry of a life or death threat. The heart rate might be elevated, the muscles might be completely tense, the body is screaming, "We are under attack!" And the dream simply paints a picture to match that physiological reality. The flight response is being triggered while the person is literally paralyzed in bed.
It's the physical realization that you cannot outrun your own exhaustion. Your body knows it is under chronic stress. It knows that the polite smile you wore during the day took a massive physical toll, and now it is playing out the consequences of that toll in the form of a literal galactic war in your sleep.
Exactly.
You wake up feeling like you've been in a battle because, on a physiological level, your body has been fighting all night long.
And when all those defenses are finally breached, when the stress has completely overwhelmed the system, the dream strips away all the remaining scenery. The grand metaphors of banks and spaceships just vanish, and the dreamer is left with the most primitive, raw representations of their vulnerability.
So the airships are bombing the defenses, the stress is overwhelming the system. What is actually left when the smoke clears? Well, the dreamer suddenly finds themselves standing completely naked. All the clothes are just gone.
Right. And nakedness in dreams represents the complete stripping away of all social roles, all protections, all the masks we wear every day.
There's nowhere to hide.
Nowhere. The authoritative MC, the polite smile, the corporate armor, all of it is gone. The dreamer is reduced to their most basic, defenseless self.
And in this completely vulnerable state, they are surrounded, but not by attacking tribes or spaceships anymore.
No, the threats change.
They are surrounded by sick, deeply wounded animals. The imagery here is intensely disturbing. There are dogs crawling with maggots. There's a puppy with a missing eye. There are dogs and cats with abnormally long tongues just dragging on the ground.
It is a grotesque and completely heartbreaking scene. But the crucial detail here is the behavior of these animals.
Right.
They do not attack. They do not bite. They simply crowd around the naked dreamer, licking them, clinging to their legs.
So why don't they bite? If this is a nightmare, shouldn't the monsters be trying to hurt you?
Because they aren't threats. They are ignored emotional fragments of the dreamer's own self.
Wow.
Emotions require energy to be suppressed. When you ignore a feeling, it doesn't just evaporate, it ferments.
It gets worse over time.
Yes. It is sequestered in the deep subconscious where it doesn't get the sunlight of conscious processing. So all those times the dreamer swallowed their disgust, all those times they smiled when they were in pain, all those times they neglected their own needs, those ignored feelings fermented and decayed into these mangled, sick creatures. The mind is showing the physical decay of emotional bandwidth.
So the maggots eat dead tissue. They are a sign of decay, but also like a biological cleanup crew. The emotions have been dead for so long, they're literally rotting.
Exactly.
And the fact that they're clinging and licking rather than biting shows that they're just a desperate plea for help. They're the neglected parts of the soul, begging to finally be acknowledged and tended to.
It's incredibly sad. And the tragedy of this neglect makes the prospect of true connection deeply terrifying. Because to truly connect with someone else, or even with oneself, requires actually looking at those wounded parts.
Which is so hard to do.
It is, and we see this terror beautifully illustrated in the very next fragment. The dreamer is standing outside an Indian curry shop, and there are two women.
Okay, this part feels like a glitch in a video game to me. The dreamer looks at one of the women, and her face is completely swallowed by darkness. It's just a void.
Right.
But as the dreamer approaches her, that face of darkness suddenly fuses and merges with a face made of bright light.
Yes, the fusion of the dark face and the light face. This represents the agonizing contradiction of human connection for someone in this state of severe depletion.
How so?
Well, on one hand, there is a profound, desperate craving for intimacy, for warmth, for the light of connection. But on the other hand, there is an absolute paralyzing terror of what intimacy actually requires.
From darkness.
Exactly. The darkness of vulnerability, the fear of exposing those sick animals we just talked about, the fear of being mocked again by the loud laughter.
So what does this all mean? It is the feeling of being intensely drawn to someone, wanting to be close to them, while simultaneously wanting to run away as fast as you can because closeness feels like a massive threat.
It perfectly captures the state where the desire for love and the defense against getting hurt are triggered at the exact same time. It creates a complete emotional paralysis.
You just freeze up.
Exactly. And the sense of losing all control over one's boundaries culminates in the final, slightly absurd but deeply meaningful image of the dream.
The third wife.
Yes.
Suddenly, a third wife appears, and she happily grabs the dreamer's underwear and just runs away with it, leaving the dreamer entirely totally exposed, like the absolute last shred of dignity, just literally running away.
Right. If being naked represents losing one's social roles, the underwear represents the absolute last line of defense, the bare minimum of personal
The
boundary.
last little bit of protection.
And this figure, happily and effortlessly stealing it away, represents the dreamer's ultimate fear of losing complete control. It's the fear that if they give in to connection, if they engage with the feminine principle of emotion and vulnerability we saw with Sayaka, it will strip them of whatever tiny shred of control they have left over their own life.
They will be left totally exposed to the world, unable to hide anything anymore.
Exactly.
I mean, this entire dream is a relentless stripping away of defenses. It is forcing the dreamer to confront the reality of their own exhaustion and the desperate state of their inner emotional life. From the forced consumption of dirty food to the terrifying silence of the perfect smile, down to the clinging of the maggot-covered dogs. Waking up from that, you're covered in sweat, your heart is racing.
It's an ordeal.
How do you even integrate a message that brutal? What do you do when your physical system has screamed at you this loudly?
Well, this is where the author pivots from the analysis of the terror to the practical reality of waking up with this information. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is not a punishment, it is an intervention.
Okay, an intervention.
And the advice for receiving this message in the waking world is incredibly gentle and highly actionable.
Which is a relief, because it doesn't suggest quitting your job immediately or moving to a cabin in the woods or anything drastic.
No,
It
that.
starts much, much smaller. The first piece of advice is simply to write the dream down, even if it's just for 3 minutes on your phone right after you wake up.
The act of writing is a bridge. When you take these chaotic, terrifying images and translate them into actual words in the waking world, you are opening a dialogue with the unconscious.
You're acknowledging it.
Yes, you are signaling to those wounded parts of yourself, I see you, I am actually paying attention. By documenting that Sayaka was silent or that the baby wasn't growing, you begin to demystify the terror. You can start to gently ask yourself, where in my waking life do I feel that same forced silence? Where am I stunting my own growth?
It is really about taking the warning seriously instead of just brushing it off as a weird night of sleep. And the second piece of advice connects right back to that heartbreaking moment of the dream where the dreamer tries to apologize to the baby.
Right.
The author suggests holding on to that feeling of, I'm sorry, but wait, apologizing to yourself, that sounds so abstract. How do you actually do that at like 2 p.m. on a Tuesday?
I know it sounds abstract, but that urge to apologize is actually the most authentic healing impulse in the entire dream. It is the core recognition that you have harmed your own inner life by prioritizing social compliance over emotional truth.
You've let yourself down.
Exactly. So bringing that feeling into your waking hours means shifting your internal relationship. When you feel yourself swallowing your own needs or forcing a smile when you feel completely dead inside, quietly hold that sense of, I'm sorry, toward yourself.
So it's about shifting your mindset toward yourself.
It is an act of profound self-compassion. You change from being a harsh taskmaster who forces yourself to eat the dirty food to being a caretaker who acknowledges the pain of the situation.
You're actively repairing the trust between your waking self and your inner emotional core.
Exactly.
And the final piece of advice is the simplest, yet probably the absolute hardest for someone in a state of hyperarousal. Taking a quiet moment in the day to simply ask yourself one question. What am I feeling right now?
Just pausing the performance, dropping the authoritative MC role, stepping away from the camera and actually checking in by asking, what am I feeling? You are breaking the silence.
You're letting the dialogue start.
You are inviting communication. You don't even necessarily have to fix the feeling immediately. You just have to acknowledge it exists. It is the exact opposite of the Sayaka figure who smiles but refuses to communicate.
Nightmares of this intensity are not random. They are brutally honest attempts by the inner self to be seen. The imagery is extreme. The rotting animals, the frozen baby, the screaming tribes, because the neglect has been extreme.
The subconscious has to turn up the volume.
Right. To deafening levels, just to penetrate the thick walls of the social persona. Acknowledging these images rather than fleeing from them is the crucial first step to recovery. It is how you stop the internal war and actually begin to heal those wounded animals.
It reframes the whole experience. That 3 a.m. wake-up call, the goosebumps, the lingering dread, it is awful to experience, but it is actually a rescue mission launched by your own body.
A rescue mission. I love that.
It is your physical and emotional truth refusing to be silenced any longer. It is the system demanding that you stop borrowing energy from the bank of external validation and start feeding yourself something more nourishing than undercooked leftovers.
Wow. We have covered incredible ground today.
We really have.
We started in that exhausting, silent compliance of a downtown Osaka gourmet shoot,
Yeah.
just swallowing what we didn't want to swallow. We descended into the emotional bankruptcy of the underground, fleeing from the mockery of our own pain. We confronted the sheer, chilling terror of the perfect empty smile and the frozen potential of the ungrowing baby.
And we saw how the body translates severe stress into galactic wars and physical sieges.
Yes. And finally, we stood completely naked with the wounded, neglected parts of ourselves, realizing that they don't want to hurt us. They just desperately want our attention.
It is a profound map of the true cost of ignoring our own truth. And the path back is built on small, quiet moments of honest self-reflection.
Writing it down.
Saying I'm sorry to yourself.
Asking what you truly feel. It reminds us that we don't need massive life overhauls to begin to heal. We don't have to fight the screaming anime tribes. We just have to stop and listen to the quiet, neglected parts of ourselves before they are forced to scream. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We've unpacked a truly terrifying yet ultimately hopeful landscape today.
The language of our deepest selves is not always easy to look at, but it is always speaking the truth.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something to explore on your own as you step away from this deep dive and back into the performance of your daily life. If our deeply unacknowledged emotions eventually ferment and turn into sick, clinging beasts and silent, smiling statues in our sleep, what small, everyday physical signs or what fleeting, easily dismissed thoughts are you actively ignoring right now in your waking life? That might actually be those very same inner voices, just quietly trying to get your attention before they have to resort to a nightmare.